me see your war face. Bullshit, you didn't convince me. Let me see your real war face. You don't scare me. Work on it.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. In the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, Democrats kept pointing to Melissa Hortman to say that, listen, there's violence on all sides. This is, of course, patently false. If you look at the evidence, Democrats never want to do this. They just want to sort of claim their narratives. But Melissa Hortman, let's go ahead and study this for just one moment, because Tim Walz is losing his mind over this, seemingly, I don't know, like a guilty party. In fact, he sure is behaving like one. Let's go ahead and check the stats, and then I'll show you the tweets and the meltdown. Nick Shirley involved is quite entertaining. And Melissa Hortman was a Democrat representative in the House in the state of Minnesota. She was a moderate by every measure, and she was actually the deciding vote that stopped criminal aliens from getting free health care in Minnesota. Now, this is, of course, something that is quite remarkable. It takes a lot of bravery to do this, but you also are standing against $1 billion fraud machine we've now learned and uncovered after Nick Shirley's reporting. So we now understand how lucrative the Medicaid, Medicare, welfare fraud is for Somalis and criminal aliens in Minnesota. This state representative just killed $1 billion business with one vote. Melissa Hortman was murdered soon after that, so sure as hell seems like a motivation. Let's go ahead and check in on her killer. Was her killer a MAGA Republican? Of course he wasn't. His name was Vance Boliter. In fact, he was appointed to a very prestigious board by Tim Walz. His wife worked for Tim Walz, something that a MAGA Republican, of course, wouldn't do. The killer said that Tim Walz ordered him to murder in his confession letter. He wrote a confession letter to authorities, state, and then to Kash Patel. And he said in both times that Tim Walz had a hand in this, that Tim Walz was trying to, extract political vengeance and to set himself up with this murder. He also named Tim Walz multiple times in his arraignment. They shut him down really quickly, and he had no King's flyers in the back of his vehicle. The guy clearly had a screw loose. Okay, we're not saying that he was of right mind. Some of the stuff that he was saying is a little rambly, that's for sure. It's not fine prose, but he was clear that Tim Walz had a part in this. Has Tim Walz ever been asked a question about this? Like, that's all we're saying, but we don't have the proof exactly. But we are saying, like, shouldn't Tim Walz have to answer for this? Isn't there enough circumstantial evidence that maybe you should just, like, have to sit down with the FBI? Here's Melissa Hortman right here, sounding like she's fearing for her life after this vote. So anyway, we asked this question and went crazy viral for it. This 32,000 likes, 115,000 likes, 32,000 reposts. And I think it's just an honest question. Then lo and behold, President Trump just posted this video about Melissa Hortman's assassination.
Remember Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota state rep that had her life taken from her by Tim Walz's aide after voting to take away health care from illegal immigrants?
She was unalived in her home by Vance Boliter, who was later caught after a manhunt. He then sent a letter to the FBI and Kash Patel saying that it was Tim Walz who forced him to do it. Both Vance Boliter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states. Was Melissa Hortman unalived because she voted against a multi-billion-dollar money laundering fraud? The fraud that she voted against that heavily implicated illegal aliens, specifically Somalians, who have been racketing this kind of child care, health care rackets and cooperating with our corrupt government. And today it's breaking news that the money laundering scam in Minnesota of billions of dollars for health care offices, child daycares, Medicaid, and various forms of care agencies. These money laundering frauds have been exposed, and it all comes back to Tim Walz.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
Very shortly after this, she was unalived in her home by Vance Boliter. Vance Boliter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states.
This is what the president posted. Obviously, libs are losing their minds over just simply saying these things out loud. There's no community note, by the way, on this. Because it's true. They did work for Tim Walz. Tim Walz has never had to answer for any of this, and I think that's wrong. Dangerous, depraved behavior by a sitting president, says Tim Walz. In covering for an actual serial killer, he's going to get more innocent people killed. America is better than this. Tim Walz said this without addressing anything. Like, why did you appoint him to this prestigious board? Why did his wife work for you? What have you ever communicated with Vance Bolter? Do you have any text messages with him? Do you have any emails with him? Have you ever said to him? Have you ever spoken to him? Do you ever meet him? He says that you ordered this killing. Is that false? Like, can you just say, no, I didn't do that? Like, he keeps talking about you nonstop to the FBI, to the authorities during his arraignment. Tim Walz, did you have anything to do with this? But instead, he just goes to ad hominem attacks. Well, he was ratioed by Nick Shirley, of course, who's done a number on Tim Walz, saying, why was she killed after speaking out against illegal immigrants? Was she a threat to you and your fraudster scheme? R.I.P. Melissa Hortman. And Nick did big numbers on this, 2.3 million views on that post ratioing Tim Walz. And so Tim Walz decided to jump in and attack Nick Shirley. This is very interesting. The first time we've heard Tim Walz go directly at Nick Shirley instead of just calling him like a member of the MAGA right wing. Now he's directly attacking him. Here we go. My opponents have been celebrating this far-right YouTuber as a groundbreaking journalist. He reveals who he really is, a delusional conspiracy theorist. Isn't that amazing? How they always use the term conspiracy theorist. Everybody's amazing. Just such an op. Everybody be aware, for asking questions like this, they will call you a delusional conspiracy theorist. Meanwhile, billions of dollars of fraud is being committed. State representative was assassinated. I'm proud to be called a delusional conspiracy theorist by Tim Walz, says Nick Shirley. It's so incredibly obvious. They're terrified of Nick Shirley and what he's uncovering. Isn't it amazing? By the way, conspiracy theorist is, of course, a term that was created by the CIA in the aftermath of JFK's assassination, where people started asking questions because the official story didn't make sense. And it seems like some very powerful people were trying to cover up very bad things. And so whenever you see somebody in power, like Tim Walz, jump in and say, they're a conspiracy theorist, like just go to the ad hominem here. This should sort of tell you exactly like who's guilty, right? Shut up, retard is another way to respond. Meet Tim Walz's former deputy chief of staff, handpicked chairman of the Minnesota Democrat Party. Here he is claiming that Charlie Kirk was assassinated for not being right-wing enough. Charlie Kirk was murdered by a leftist. So Tim Walz, like, I don't know, maybe check your own house. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz attacks Nick Shirley as a delusional conspiracy theorist. Shut up, you mincing freak. You are a coward. Hope you can fix your mouth and come after a YouTuber, but you won't say sugar honey iced tea about the corruption. Okay, I see what you did there, Tatum. About the corruption you allowed to happen under your watch. Democrats are evil and pathetic. The more Tim Walz rants about Nick Shirley, the more I'm convinced that he's the one on the scams and needs to go to jail. The walls are closing in on this corrupt fraudster. Resign now. Nick Shirley probably will have the last laugh here. Obviously, the Treasury, House, FBI, the Department of Labor, Small Business Administration, the DOJ are all looking into the Minnesota fraud. They have teams on the ground, Department of Homeland Security as well. Smalley fraud ring turned money laundering, and why Tim Walz and the Democrats looked the other way for an unfathomable reason. Is it really unfathomable? No. They just wanted their votes. It's 100,000 extra Democrat votes that like you don't even need to work for because they just all come, you pay for them. Look at this. Anyway, they're putting the fraudsters in prison. Nick Shirley on a recent podcast saying his new favorite hobby is ratioing Tim Walz. Give the kid the Pulitzer at this point. Here you go.
So in terms
My favorite new hobby is ratioing Tim Walz on Twitter.
I see you ratioing everybody on Twitter. That's your new favorite hobby, apparently. What's your Twitter look like?
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at ratioing people like Tim Walz on Twitter because they're speaking like idiots and they're supporting fraud. And it turns out that the majority of the population doesn't support fraud. And so on Twitter, it's been actually crazy. For instance, just the past few days on Twitter, I put out one tweet, over 200,000 likes on me calling out the mainstream media. And a simple tweet of me saying mainstream media is more mad at me than they are at the fact that billions of your tax dollars are being used for fraudulent business. I am not an enemy of the people. They are. I'm with you. They are against you. Remember that. 253,000 people like that tweet. Wow.
In one day.
One day.
And then in terms of like ratioing, have you had any like
So
does
some
Tim
person-
Walz, how does he is he just ignoring it?
Oh, he's been trying to. For the video got over 500 million views in impressions alone within the first 72 hours. Tim Walz was posting about his cat out of the fire at his house.
What about the mayor? The one that was in cahoots with the Somalian guy?
I haven't heard anything from him. Nothing. Like all they have to do is just like simply say, all right, we're going to pause fraud.